think we're doing all right. So let's just check. Black Maternal Health Week. Thoughts, feelings.
I'm excited. I'm excited that we are recognizing something really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited that this week opens up the doors for a lot of conversation that needs to be had about the things that are affecting us. I think that having something like this and having a lot of things that Black women are spearheading during this week has given us permission to talk about what's really going on with us, and given us permission to just be real and raw and authentic with our stories.
I agree.
So tell me your name. What do you do? And how'd you get into the birth world?
Yeah, so my name is Ashley Johnson. Ashley J is my little nickname. And I am a parenting coach with a background in birth and breastfeeding education. And becoming a mom is what got me into birth work and stuff, knowing that I needed something different that I didn't see being offered normally. Really made me take a deep dive into what is this world all about? What is birth and motherhood all about? And I was like, oh, more people need to know this. More people need to know this, and that's what made me like it. Just becoming a mom changed everything.
Yes.
We were having that discussion like when we were setting up about how like it's a whole nother like door
Yeah.
that you walk through, and that I was saying that like I feel sad for the women who like that light switch never really turns on for them. Not to say that like that's not part of your journey, like it just might not be part of your journey, but for me like it was my everything. Like it changed everything for me, the way I see everything. Even on a spiritual level, it took me to places where I was like, wow. And that was really my postpartum experience that did that for me. Can you tell me your name?
I'm Chanel. I'm with Empowering Your Birth. I'm a doula. I have a 9-year-old. I breastfed her for 3 years. What got me into the birth world was just support, and that's not having enough of it. I was in that typical Black Baltimore family where everybody's like, oh, you need to get epidural and you need to do this and don't feed your baby breast milk, that's nasty. And so I needed people to know like it's nothing wrong with it. Everything's good. So I kind of was my own advocate for that one.
It's true, a lot of times that's the case. I mean, that's how I ended up here too,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me your name.
I'm Loren, but you can call me Ren. I call myself Ren the doula. I'm an artist in Baltimore, and I kind of was inspired of my home birth. I had both my children at home in their own rooms, and I was empowered in having that opportunity to have my children at home. I felt everything, and I felt really connected with my children just because of that. Yeah.
I also had a home birth with my second child.
You did?
Yeah, I did. So I had two like birth center births and then one home birth. The home birth happened because the first birth center birth, we went back and forth so many times, I almost had him in the car.
Wow.
And so after that, like when I got pregnant the second one, I was like, we are not going to the birth center. Like home birth needs to be what we do because I don't have time for that. And the funny thing is when my water broke on my second, I had spent the whole day I washed like 12 loads of laundry. I was like, I'm getting it all done. Like the nesting phase was like crazy, but I had gotten dehydrated and I went into labor and there was a little bit of meconium in the bag. And so I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get to have my home birth, and for a woman, a Black woman in this day and age, planning a home birth is your everything. Like you're like, this is the only way I can protect myself. You know what I mean? Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit? Talk about how birth in the hospital is.
So for me, I have a little different experience than both of these ladies. I actually birthed in a hospital, but I birthed natural, and I also birthed in a pool.
Okay.
So I got lucky. I got really, really lucky with a doctor who understood exactly what I wanted. And he knew that I wasn't going to falter from it, and that's what I wanted. So me being very strong-minded, even during birth, was like, this is what it is. And we built that relationship because he was my doctor, my OBG, and also my just regular, physician. So he kind of he already knew how I was.
Mhm.
So I got really, really lucky with that. I really did. And just recently I got to do a birth with him as a doula. So that was absolutely awesome.
And I'm
And
sure
the
he came
lady-
with many recommendations.
Right. And the lady actually went natural too. So she was in the hospital and had a natural birth as well.
You know, like, so okay, really quickly, because I know some of y'all have to leave, but I just really quickly, I want to touch on this Nipsey Hussle thing, because it's really like deep down in my heart right now, and I feel like I said, before we got on camera, I feel like I connect with his music on so many different levels, but when I think about what he talked about as far as unifying the community, I feel like he's talking to all of the Black community on every level and every aspect, which includes motherhood, birth, breastfeeding, postpartum, and all of that, right?
Absolutely.
And so, how can we use his idea of unifying the community to actually do that? Like, what can we do? What can we do to bring the community together in a way that it supports Black maternal health? Because at the end of the day, that's really the foundation of all the issues in our
Right.
system, right? It all, I mean, if you look at all of the data, Black women have the highest maternal death rate. Our babies have the highest infant mortality rate. Our women have the lowest breastfeeding rate. So we are marginalized and the disparities are astronomical. It just doesn't make sense.
I think the best thing that we can do is educate and support. Yeah.
I also think it's a matter of waking up, because like I said, like you see how their babies are really young, and that's what kind of catapulted them into, you know, getting into this birth world where, like I told you, my daughter's 9, and it really took for me to wake up and realize like we're dying, and it starts with our babies, it starts with our moms, and then trickle on, you know, on down. And so for me, it was kind of like a wake up moment. Like I need to get in the fight. I'm tired of being like, oh, they're killing us, they're doing this, but never really doing anything about it. So for me, it was, I needed to jump in there and fit in, get in where I fit in. And for me, it was about birth. It starts here.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to do 3 things. I think we need to heal, we need to build, and we need to fight.
Right.
So we need to heal ourselves and each other.
Right.
We need to build organizations and Black institutions that'll stand in support of what we need and will fight for us and what our interests are. And then we need to fight against, you know, all these, you know, systematic oppression, white supremacy, racism, all that stuff that is really the backdrop to all of these issues, right? Like it's so much deeper than we don't know this and we don't know that. Well, they know a whole lot, and they know what can keep us from getting what we need. And so we need, you know, to pull all those things together, heal ourselves, build our community, and then fight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We need to start learning about birth though.
Yes,
That's
the
the one
education
thing.
is just so, it's like a lack thereof,
Yeah.
right?
And the ability to birth. Like we need to get that ability to have our babies however we decide. And Chanel had a hospital birth. You know, Ashley had a birth and a birth, and I had a home birth. So we are
So you guys
collaborating.
represent,
Right.
yes.
Literally every
Yes.
and
And it's called Empowering Your Birth, right?
Yeah.
Empowering Your Birth. Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing to see the sisterhood. It's funny, I was raised in an all-white community, and I was always the only Black girl. I was the token Black girl all the time, right? So for me, my Blackness did not really develop until I got into like middle school and started kind of seeing like, oh, okay, things are a little bit different now, you know. A lot of my other friends were like Latina too, so that's why I kind of gravitated toward that culture as well. But yeah, so I mean, with my husband being mixed, and then like our kids now being mixed, and then my mother-in-law is from Mazatlan, so I learned Spanish, and like I was all in it, right? But I still was looking for me, who was inside of me. My parents are from Ghana, from West Africa, and I have not been home. So this really, and I've been emotional all weekend. I don't know why. I've been crying about everything, so forgive me if I cry.
That's a part of healing.
But it is like, to hear you say that first step is to heal, like that is the journey that I have just come through. I have just come through that. So like now I feel so prepared to really move forward in my mission and in my purpose. Like, I know this is where I'm supposed to be. Whereas 4 years ago, I was questioning it.
Right.
You know, maybe it's not me, maybe it's somebody else, and maybe I should just, you know, step away from this.
Absolutely.
And when things got difficult, or when, you know, people ask hard questions, it would be, you know, hard for me to say, like, okay, well, what am I gonna say to these people?
Right.
But after getting my education as a breastfeeding educator and counselor, and after I've done tons of like missionary work, advocacy work, activism, like my entire life. So I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. And it took the healing, going through that healing. I did a sister circle with Ashley Wright last year.
Yeah.
It was a 12-week sister circle, amazing experience. I walked away whole. And that was what I was missing, you know. So I'm just so grateful that we have this opportunity, even though it's kind of short. I feel like all of you guys, because you guys are all like collaborating anyway, you guys are all on the same wavelength, and it was a really great opportunity to just kind of talk about.
Can I say something though?
Yes, please do.
I think that we connect also as artists.
Yes.
You know, because that visualization of seeing yourself being Black, breastfeeding, birthing is so important. It is a part of you.
It is.
Representation. Right.
Let's show your art.
Oh.
Real quick. Just since you mentioned it.
Oh yeah, well this is the breastfeeding coloring book. Yeah, but I've
Are you
been
in
really
the frame?
She's
Yeah.
in it, but she's like,
Okay.
I've been really trying to focus on painting and painting Black women doing things like breastfeeding and just being Black women, beautiful Black women. And this is a print of it's called Breastfeeding. Was it Breast Friends Feeding in the Park? And yeah, that's my focus right now.
Yeah, as a photographer, your work means so much to me because I know that a lot of your images come from photographs.
Right.
And so like when you did the stencil of one
Yeah.
of my images, like I was like, she used my image. Like I was like, yo, I'm in a coloring book. I was like, I'm in a coloring book. This is awesome. Because I mean, I just never thought like that my mission would be breastfeeding.
Right.
You know, like you don't
Yeah.
grow up thinking that unless you're raised with that education.
Yeah.
Right.
So like if our young girls are raised with this education, they know when they're little what they want to do. Just like they say, oh, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, I want to be a breastfeeding educator. I want to help moms who are going to go into birth. I want to make sure that they're getting all the postpartum care that they need, you know?
Yep.
It doesn't start until we actually raise them up with that knowledge,
Absolutely.
you know? And so
Stop shying
this
away
is
from
one of
it.
my favorites too. I love that show, that one too. But I'm just so grateful for you ladies, and me and Brent connected via just like one time. I don't know what happened. Oh, it must have been the video. Oh, it must have been the video. No, the picture though. When I found it on the coloring book, I was just like so awesome. I was like, oh my god.
And so like copyright. As a growing artist, I didn't understand copyright, and you know, I learned now. 15%. It's a rule.
It turned into a partnership.
It did,
Right. It ends up working out, you know, and like I think that as your sister, even though we didn't know each other from Adam, I was number one not gonna come at you foul for using my picture. I was honored. And I say that with the deepest like humility. I was absolutely honored to see my picture in that book. I was like, oh my gosh, nobody else has done that. I've been doing this for 5 years. So I'm like, hey, I'll take it, you know. But then I was starting to, you know, question like, where are you getting all of your pictures from?
Right.
Who are the other artists? Have you
Can we
talked
talk
to them?
about that?
Let's talk about it.
Can we talk about
Keep getting a hot
Do I need to? Yeah, because she has to run. She has to run. It's okay.
Peace.
I love
Okay.
it. Thank you so much. Is he knocked out? He's knocked out on the booth.
I gotta make sure I say this in a really respectable way. The history of media has been a history, right? Like we use Black women and men to portray an image. And you can say like Uncle Tom, we can say like slave, and we have this image of Black women breastfeeding and doing all these amazing things. But when I was getting into doing art and birth art, I kept looking for the artist, and the artist wasn't Black.
Yes.
And that's why I was like, wow, let me just like start doing some paintings and, you know, like having a Black woman paint the image of Black person in birthing or
And
breastfeeding is
blackness.
so important.
It's so important.
It's so
Is this your
important.
phone?
Nope.
Oh, it's mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I'm not sure how you feel about that. How do you feel?
Like, I don't put a lot of opinions out there because I don't like to be judged. Nobody does. But at the same time, like sometimes you just gotta speak your mind, right? So like I said, I just found my blackness recently. Like I would want to say probably right around the time I became a mother. So I got married about a year before that. And then when I became a mom, I would go to all these support groups and it was always white women. And I mean, I didn't have a problem with them because like I said, I grew up with white women, but at the end of the day, I always felt singled out. I always felt like nobody looked like me. Nobody had hair like me. I couldn't talk about the troubles of trying to get my hair done when I was trying to breastfeed. And I couldn't talk about like, just all the things.
Watermelon out in the open.
I
mean, but really,
it's crazy because I'm like the complete opposite of that.
Okay.
So I was the Black girl living in the inner city in Park Heights, which is the hood. Right. But I was what she calls crunchy.
She's crunchy.
So
She's
I was
really
always
crunchy.
right. So I was always a little different, and I got singled out because I was more focused on making sure that my daughter had, I breastfed and making sure that I did vegan and making sure that I did organic, and so like I was looked at by like my mom and my dad and my sisters and brothers like you
the
just
strange
doing too much.
one.
Like
the strange
you doing
one.
way too much. Like that is not.
But see, why? Why can't we do too much? Like it's for our babies.
Right? Like we
it's
used
for
to
the
get
next generation.
full-blown fights. Like I would take myself. Like of course my cousin watched my daughter while I was at work. I was a correctional officer, so our hours were crazy. So I would send like my little organic food that I made, my baby food, and she would be like, "Don't leave this here," and I'll come back and it'll still be in the same package that it was because they basically fed her what they wanted her to have. So we just used to have like really big scrapping.
That's so interesting. Yeah, like I'm glad that you shared that because I think it's so important in the sense that like our blackness comes from all over the world, right? Because we have had to adapt ourselves to all of these different countries that we've been taken to, right? And so when we talk about slavery, when we talk about the food, talk about the fact that we breastfed their babies and we're unable to breastfeed our own. The fact that we introduced the very first formula, which was like what, sweet milk or whatever, we did that. We had to do that for ourselves because nobody else gave a damn about our babies, right? So now you see more women becoming educated, and then as they become educated, they start to take a stand for their babies and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, I mean, listen, my birth story, my first baby, I walked into my OBGYN, I was so excited. We went in there, I was like, I'm going to lay my birth plan out. I had it written out. I was ready to go. This lady looked at me like, and she told me 90% of our women use an epidural. And I told her, okay, that's fine. I want to have a natural birth. And then she repeated the phrase, 90% of our women, like this is our clique. You know what I'm saying? Our women get the epidural. I was like, okay, I'm obviously not in your clique. Peace. You know what I'm saying?
That's
and
awesome, though. That's awesome.
But I happen to be in the right place. I happen to be in the right place at the right time because I had been working in insurance. So I knew if I could change my group to a group that was accepted by my local birth center, then I could get myself covered. So all I did was start making those phone calls. I got on the phone with my insurance company. I asked them about my group. I asked the birth center, you guys cover? What do you cover? What's your group number? This and that. Got it. Bing, bam, boom. Switched over in about a month and a half and started care with the midwife.
And you know what this is called, right? It's called being your own advocate.
Being your own advocate.
And a lot of clients that we have, we try to get them to be their own advocate before that happens.
Right.
Before, we have doctors kind of like lying to us, right? Like we have this front face, and you say, I want to have a natural birth. And they're like, okay, you can have your natural birth.
Right.
And when everything happens, they
They're
don't
the first ones
they
They
can't
don't
have
hold
their-
you down because they have contracts with the hospital. So they cannot physically advocate for you
Right.
if it goes outside of those boundaries,
Right.
So they're forced to say, well, hey, my job's on the line.
Right.
We taking you to C-section.
Right.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
And the best thing that you can do is align yourself with a care provider who actually wants to hear what you have to say.
Right.
And even like what you just said, right? They say 90% of their moms end up having a C-section. Okay, find someone that says 50% or 40% or even 30%.
Right.
Or consider a home birth.
Right,
Because
consider a
listen,
home birth.
But it's crazy though, because a lot of Black women don't even know
They don't even
that you can
Have
you
a
can
home birth.
choose. Like
Yeah.
you have choices. You have a million choices, and that's even with having state insurance. That's even with having like what is it, Amerigroup?
Right.
They still have choices, and it's crazy because they really genuinely don't know that they have those choices. And so like that's a lot of times what our biggest job is, just letting them know or showing them that
Right.
you have all of these choices. Like it doesn't have to be that way.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Trust in body language too. Like
Yeah.
if we do have natural births. We can have your natural birth. Like, no, that's not true.
Seriously.
No, it's that's so true. The body language is there. And I mean also you gotta go with your gut. Like if your OBGYN is rubbing you the wrong way, get out of there. Don't think
Seriously.
twice about it. Don't think that they're gonna get their feelings hurt. Like you don't matter to their paycheck.
Right.
Facts.
If
They're
you
still gonna get paid as soon as you walk out this door.
exactly.
Right.
That is my point.
Yeah.
That is my point.
And that's that's one of the biggest fights that one of the biggest concerns that we have when it comes to our
I
women.
mean, it is a fight, but just like Ashley mentioned, we gotta heal, build, and fight. We gotta heal and build first.
And the trust
Once we
thing-
heal and build, we'll see. And building is part of the trust,
Right.
because you can't build trust
Right.
until you have that opportunity to heal,
That's
right?
very true.
So if we heal, okay, we take our community through a period of healing, and then we take our community through a period of building, then that fight is going to come because they're not going to be able to knock us down
Right.
when we stand together united. And this is the reason why this whole Nipsey Hussle thing has me going. Like
Right.
he has inspired me in the last 5 days more than I've been inspired by anyone
Right.
or anything
Right.
in the last 5 years. Why is that? Like he was speaking too much truth.
Right.
Right.
Like, and I truly believe that breastfeeding, not just breastfeeding, so birth, obviously a healthy pregnancy, birth, and then a solid breastfeeding relationship of really a minimum of like 2 years. I really believe that is the foundation that our people need to get back to.
I agree.
And I believe that if we can start with that as the foundation, Black maternal health as the foundation, we're gonna see hundreds of thousands of Nipsey Hussles running around.
Absolutely.
And you know one thing that I really want to know? Was he breastfed? Because we know that we hear about developmental stimuli, all of that happens when you breastfeed. You've got hand and motor skills. You've got like they think on a different
Right.
plane, and it's not.
They're
This is
giving
nothing
their
against
natural
women who
milk.
formula feed, because I formula fed 2 of my kids, so I don't want nobody listening to think, oh,
Right.
she don't like people who formula. No, I support everyone.
Right.
Support is best for moms. Okay,
Right.
but I just had to put that out there.
Right.
But
Disclaimer.
I really do believe that. I mean, come on, breast milk has DNA in it. We're passing down our ancestry.
But as simple as that's the milk for baby. That's like the
It's
so
so simple.
let's stop taking baby cow milk and
That is
stealing.
not for
I mean,
Goat milk,
think about it.
Oat
Think about
milk.
it. How do we get baby cow milk?
pump it out.
We get the cow pregnant. We take her baby away, just like they did us,
To us.
and we take
Yeah.
their milk
Yeah.
and keep them steady. So yeah.
It's just funny that you say how they think a different way. Like she's met my daughter,
Mhm.
and she is so like on a whole nother level, and you be like, where did you come from, child?
You are an ancestor from like
where is
far
a
back.
60-year-old woman
right.
that's in your body? Because like my daughter, like seriously, like, and that's no joke. She's somewhere else, seriously, and it's like you have to be on your A game to talk to her.
Yeah,
you have to be.
It's real, and I. So the conversation I've been having with a lot of men recently, I don't know if you guys know this, but I drive Lyft.
Right.
So I drive Lyft in between like my bookings because I can't get a part-time job because if I have to fly out somewhere randomly, I can't get a job. Yeah. So I drive Lyft in between my bookings in San Diego, and I've been having these conversations with men recently about breastfeeding. Well, I talk to everybody about breastfeeding because if they ask me who I am or what I do, I end up talking about normalized breastfeeding.
Right.
So I get to talk about breastfeeding while I drive Lyft. It's actually really cool. I'm
That's
normalizing it every day. Yeah. I was like, this is my mission. I was like, thank you, Lyft. But no, like when I talk with them, usually I've not had anyone who was like absolutely and utterly disgusted by the conversation, which is a good thing. Right. But it's also a very limited part of the country, and it's very, very limited amount of people that I've given rides to, you know. But I will say that the men who I have spoken with, no matter the shape, size, color of the person, have all, the ones who were breastfed by their own mothers typically had a very actually all of them had a very nonchalant response to, oh yeah, breastfeeding, that's great for babies. Like, what's the issue? And why are people so in a frenzy about breastfeeding, whatever. Whereas the men who were not, they would know, like, they know that I'm already in this work, right? So they don't want to disrespect me.
Right.
So they're like, well, I mean, they can cover up a little bit, they don't have to have their breasts all out, whatever. And so then I just flip it and say, so were you breastfed? And usually the people who respond in that way tell me no, I was formula fed. And so we have to consider what is happening in the child's brain when it's removed from its mother, when it's not given the skin to skin that it needs to survive. Like, we are mammals. I keep trying to explain this to people.
Yeah.
Just like you said, it's as simple as where we get the milk. It's as simple as the fact that we are mammals. And mammals have skin to skin contact, all of them, with their young when they're born. And then they feed them their milk.
Definitely.
So I think if we can somehow get back to just that common sense, like, we don't take babies away from their mothers. I mean, somebody sent me a message the other day. It was a schedule from a nursery of a hospital from back in the day, like in the 60s, when they used to have the baby.
Wonder what that says.
It is scary, girl. It was like, baby will return to mom for, I was like, when did baby leave mom? Like, what?
Like, they would, and it's crazy, and it's just like within the last 10 years have changed. Because I know for me, my daughter never left the room, but for my sister who had my niece when she was 15, and so it was like 8 years. They're like 8 years apart, and so they would take the baby, and like if mom was tired, they'd take the baby out the room and then bring it back. So for me, it was like, the baby don't leave out the room. And so he was like, girl, you better get your rest while you at the hospital and let them take that baby. And I'm like, girl, they don't take the babies no more. Like, I don't get no rest.
And that brings me back to like the difference between hospital and home birth. That skin to skin, that golden, that just baby coming out and baby being left on your chest, giving the opportunity for baby to do the breast crawl. And allowing baby to latch on by baby self.
And they're not being a rush. But see, okay, so the downside, you knocked that out the park. You knocked that out the park. I was like, yes.
But see, I got to do, I got really,
you had a really awesome OBGYN.
Really lucky. Like, and I say it all the time, like, I know, just from being a doula and seeing hospital births, like, I got so lucky.
So how what were the things that helped you to develop trust with your provider?
Him being my provider before I was ever even pregnant.
Okay, so it was the history more than anything else.
And so he knew me. He knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted, and I did my research, and I made sure I educated myself. It wasn't just, okay, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna listen to everybody else, and then because everybody's like, your body will tell you what to do. Like, no, I needed to know what was going on.
beforehand, because you already had no idea
Right,
of what
exactly.
was going
So
to do.
my
Like,
first
it's telling
baby,
me, I
right.
don't know.
Right. And even down to like, I used to hate when which is true though. Like I was so afraid of like my water breaking. And I was like, what if I don't know? What if I don't know? But it really was like you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
It was different for me because I wasn't educated at all.
Mhm.
Like I rushed everything in my midwives, and I got lucky because I didn't even have a cervical check. Like I don't even know what it feels like to have a cervical check. And you know, just being able to know that,
Right.
you know, we both got really lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like like just with this past year and seeing like all of the women in
We've
the
seen
hospital,
some
and it's
things.
been some crazy
Some things.
stuff.
Thinking the placenta out, not even
And
giving
I
mom.
really know that in the hospital I was definitely one of the lucky ones. And even more lucky because, you know, at the hospitals doctors go on rotation.
Right.
And I had a doctor, my doctor just happened to have been there the day that I had my daughter, because I would have gotten a completely different doctor had it not been him on call.
Right.
So I genuinely really got extremely lucky.
That's awesome.
Like the heavens were in my favor. My ancestors was watching out
Oh,
for me.
yeah.
Like, we got
Oh
this.
yeah, we got
And
this.
I just,
And see, same thing for you and same thing for me.
Yeah.
Because to be quite honest, the fact that I never ended up in the hospital, I had hyperemesis all 3 pregnancies.
Mm.
Every single day. Like 6 to 7 times a day because of a nasal drip that had been created by dairy intake. It took 3 pregnancies to figure that out. The doctors didn't figure it out. I figured it out.
Right.
I was like, oh, every time I eat cheese or have a little bit of yogurt, I get this weird mucusy thing and I start having all this mucus drip down my throat and then it goes into my stomach and it makes me throw up.
Right.
They were like, here's some chemicals, obviously.
Right.
Here's a nasal spray. Use that. Well, guess what? It didn't work. Okay. So it came down to me realizing, okay, what am I putting in my body?
Right.
What's my body's response to what I'm putting in my body? And then how can I change that? What can I do to advocate for myself in this situation? Part of what helped me to get my hyperemesis under control with the 3rd baby was I also looked at the time in which my body would react and start getting very nauseous. And it was about 90 minutes of time. From when I put food in my mouth, 90 minutes later, I was already nauseous. So I had to, at 60 minutes, tell myself, it's time to eat again. You're going to be fine. Let's make this food before we get nauseous.
Right.
Make the food, shove it in my mouth, get it in my stomach before that 90-minute hit so that it's processing during the time that I felt like I was going to be nauseous.
Right.
And I got ahead of the curve and it helped.
That's awesome.
But I mean, that it took
Being
3 full
aware.
pregnancies, 27 months of pregnancy to
But
figure.
you know what? You
But
can
you
turn
figured
that
it out,
right.
though.
You
But you
can
turn it
turn that
around.
into a positive because maybe a mom is dealing with something.
Right.
Teaching her to advocate for herself and not just trust her medical provider.
Right.
You know.
Right. And it's fine with trusting your provider if you know them
yeah.
the way that you knew yours.
Right.
But to just trust any provider because you got them through your insurance is absolutely insane.
Or just
like
trust
it just
them because
doesn't.
they're a doctor.
Just because they're a doctor.
What
Yeah.
about the nurses though? I had a
That's a whole
situation
different story.
where we were supposed to do skin to skin, and the nurse got upset because you know, I made a comment, oh, we're doing skin to skin. She wanted to take the baby away to do shots and, you know, prick the feet and stuff. And I'm like, what about skin to skin? So what about